How are you guys doing today?
Excellent.
Hey, is you having a good MAGWest?
Yes.
A good Westival? No. I know I am. Thank you guys for coming. This is great. This is going to be fun. We're going to talk about spicy chords. I'm going to get a keyboard to play some spicy chords on, so we're not just talking about them in the abstract, but we'll, just have to be patient for that, I guess. How many of you guys would say that you're familiar with spicy chords? Okay, good chunk. How many of you think that spicy chords, I'm trying to think of a better term, but that's all that comes to mind. How many of you are intimidated by spicy chords? Oh, you got some both over here. Okay, well that's cool. So I'm not going to go too slow then. I have a ton of examples, and I was thinking probably too many examples to fit into 1 hour. And so I thought, if the crowd is educated and willing, we'll dive into some cool stuff. And if everyone's very intimidated, then we'll just get the basics down. But so this will be fun. This will be fun. I'm going to start going, and we're going to see what happens. See if we get a keyboard at some point. Okay. You guys know what spicy chords are. Spicy chords! They got that tang on them. They're not just your average chord. I would play an example right now. No, so yeah, spicy chords, by that, just to be perfectly clear, because it's a goofy phrase, goofy term. But I mean, when I'm talking about chords that have a lot of notes in them, more than 3 notes. If you think of kind of your basic C major, D minor chords, they all have 3 notes. They're called triads because they have 3 notes. And when you start piling more notes than those main 3 onto a chord, that's called an extension. So you're extending the chord. And I'll just blitz through this pretty quick, but for just in case, there's diatonic extensions, I guess, where you're taking notes from the scale of the key you're in. So a C major chord, if you add in notes from the C major scale, those are upper extensions. Your 9th, your 11th, your 13th. And if you start moving those extensions up or down, get like a sharp 9th, for example, that's called an altered extension. So that's what that means. You're altering the extension by just moving it up or down a semitone. Music theory nerds love having big terminology that they can use and sound like it's more complicated than it is. But what if you just like triads? What if you don't want to learn about spicy chords? You came to the wrong panel, but that's okay. There's lots of music that just uses basic chord colors, and that's part of the sound of some genres. You think about folk music, it's just like a singer-songwriter and a guitar singing their heart out. It's like the point of that kind of music is more... Anyway, but, a big crunchy chord would just get in the way if you're like doing a nice singer-songwriter folky tune. But video game music and a lot of instrumental music, gets a lot out of using kind of more complicated extended harmony for a lot of different reasons. So it's worth learning about if you're interested in writing music or just, I don't know. So the theme of the panel is spicy chords aren't scary, but it sounds like, you guys are familiar, so they're not scary. Sometimes they're a little bit, you think they might be past the expiration date, if you know what I mean. But they're not all, they're not scary, they're fun. So if you get hit with a little like, at first, I have a reverse sustain pedal, that's fun. Yeah, anyway, this is this chord is I was trying to find a scary extended chord, and I looked up a transcription of a Jacob Collier cadence and just pulled one out. And I'm like, oh yeah, like an E9 over A7? Yeah, of course, that's a normal thing, right? So I think of spice, I think of chord extensions and complicated harmony as kind of like cooking a dish. There's spices that you can add in that affect the music in a certain way. And not every spice is appropriate for every kind of dish, just like you wouldn't use, certain approaches to harmony don't work in some musical contexts. You wouldn't want to put a bunch of, I'm not good enough at cooking to do this analogy. You wouldn't want to put sardines on a hot dog, probably, right? I don't know. That's not a spice, but you get what I'm saying. If you're making Italian food, you use Italian spices. You don't throw in sriracha. That would be ridiculous. So you don't put sharp 9 chords in your singer-songwriter folk tune, unless you whatever. You could probably find a way to make it work, I guess. But I just have to. I asked too many people to help me at once, and now I'm going to get another keyboard here, I think. Hold on. Sorry. I should have told you. Sorry again. Sorry. Okay. Oh yeah, so the first step to extended chords, the first step to understanding them is sevenths. I feel like sevenths are kind of in between. It's not an upper extension, kind of like it's more than just a triad, but it's not just a spice that you sprinkle on top of a chord. It's really core to the sound of a chord. So if you have a C major, that has a major sound, that chord has an identity. It's a major chord, and the tonic is C. And if you have a C7 chord, that is a very different functional identity to a C major 7 chord. Those are not like interchangeable at all, the way that like a C13 and a C9 are kind of interchangeable. So you do have to just learn your sevenths, and there's major sevenths, which are they're the pretty one. They're a half step below the root, an octave up. Dominant sevenths, those are the ones that move you from one place to another. And then there's minor sevenths, where it's a minor chord with a flat 7 on top. Those are kind of like the main big 3 categories. I'm racing through, like how many of you knew that already? Okay, so most of you. So if you didn't, sorry. I'll have Q&A stuff at the end if you need more clarification. But basically the thing that I want you to remember is major and minor and dominant are like the 3 categories. We kind of think of major and minor as the 2 categories, because that's, if you're just thinking triads, those are the 2 main categories. You can have the weird diminished chords and stuff, but 99% of music is written with major and minor. And then once you get sevenths involved, the 99% is major 7, dominant 7, minor 7. Okay, anyways, well, let's get into something, the interesting stuff. Oh yeah, so just, it seems like there's a million different options for chord extensions, right? Especially the numbers start flying, oh, C9, sharp 11, flat 13. You're like, what? But really, once you have your 7th chords down pat, once you're like, I know all my 7ths, boom, that's a 4-note chord. A scale has 7 notes. 7 minus 4, there's only 3 notes left in the. So I kind of think of the upper extensions as like another triad on top of a 7th chord. So if you think of like, a minor 7 chord, D minor 7, only 3 notes in the D minor scale left. Now the top one, you noticed, sounds bad, so we don't use that one. So really, functionally, minor chords you can think of as a minor triad and then a major triad a whole step below on top. So a D minor triad and a C major triad on top, and that's a fully extended, for practical uses, minor chord. Another thing that I think music theory nerds like is figuring out every possible combination that you could use for something. Like, I'm gonna practice all 7 modes of the harmonic minor scale in every, But then when you actually look at music, like I look at a lot of video game music and transcribe a ton of video game music, and trying to find examples of like a minor 7 flat 13 chord, like I can think of one that I've ever seen. So I'm like, just don't worry about that then. if it's intimidating, you don't gotta worry about that one. Okay, so this is just what I'm talking about. The scale breaks up into a 4-note chord with a 3-note upper extension triad, if you want the fancy term. Okay, so we're almost at the fun part. So why would you want to use spicy chords though? Okay, I get the math, 7 minus 4 equals 5, whatever it is, I get it. But why? Why do I care? Because without upper extensions, you're not going to be able to access those sick vibes. You're not going to be able to get that crunch. You're not going to be able to evoke that serious sting. And we're going to see examples of all 3 of these shortly. Ready? Vibes! Okay. What's the vibiest tune in video game history? That's right. Secret of the Forest. Okay. The audio didn't work when I tested it, but let's see if it works now all of a sudden. Okay, it's just coming out on my laptop, but we won't use. Is that working out? No? Let's see. If I just crank it on the laptop, is it on here? It's coming out of here. I don't know if that does anything.
It's all right.
Can you guys hear it?
Put the mic down.
Oh no! Oh no! Okay. I was jamming at the pool party outside until just before this, and I should have left earlier set up, but we're doing it. We're getting through. Okay. So on screen you'll see that the tune, the main part of the tune, is constructed out of 2 alternating chords. The first one is a G flat major 13.
Is it still doing the thing? I'm just unplugging it.
I still reverse sustain, but it won't stop on it.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. Give it up for Dak, my hero. Now, picture this for me. I want you to imagine you're entering a mysterious forest, and it's misty, and there's, vines hanging down, and it's kind of creepy, but also kind of intriguing, and you hear this. That's not it, right? That sucks. Woo! That's a vibe. Woo! That's getting into crunch territory, but we're not there yet. We're still in the vibes part of the presentation. So, the 13th, there's a little bit of memorization, I think, when you're learning this stuff of, the 13th is the 6th, they're the same. The 9th is the 2nd, they're the same. You just kind of have to get used to that. But basically, a common, especially in the Chrono Trigger soundtrack, a common approach is to take, a sus4 kind of voicing. You'll see that's B flat, E flat, and F, and then another B flat on top. That kind of sound is all over the soundtrack, but putting a different root underneath, instead of B flat, putting G flat, all of a sudden it's like the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th, or the 3rd, the 13th, and the 7th. And that, having the 6th and the 7th in a chord is like super colorful, in a major chord I should say specifically. Super colorful, super beautiful. The F minor 9 having that 9th underneath the flat 3rd. Whoa, that gives you that crunch. That's a vibe. Those are the chords written out, not arpeggiated, just as big old chords. And this is a cool example because they don't both fit into one key. Like the 9th of F minor is a G natural, which clashes with the G flat that came before it. But that's kind of the meets it away. It's like, I don't care, we're doing it. And that clash adds some color too. But I guess that's kind of beyond the scope of the presentation. Hold on. So, another example of sick vibes. Who remembers this wonderful piece of music? That was like, this stopped me in my tracks when I was playing the game and first heard that. And it's so simple. It's just one chord. It just happens to be an extended chord, a fully extended minor chord even. At the first 4 bars, you see it goes up on the 4th bar and comes down. It's literally just. Just what I mentioned before, a C major triad over a D minor triad. And that adds up, C plus D equals D minor 11. And there's just, I don't know, have you guys heard the term minimum viable product? Like when you're making a game and it's just like, what's the bare minimum that's worth playing, the bare minimum idea that you can put in front of people that's worth spending the time doing, interacting with. And I think about that with music sometimes, like, if you have like just a groove that feels good, it doesn't matter what else you put in the music, because that's a viable product by itself. So everything else is just gravy. If you have this chord, that's just a nice sounding chord, you know, like always. So if you have that in your tune, it's gonna sound cool. Like, and this just goes to show, like, there's so little else going on. But anyway, not to spend too much time on, that's how it looks in sheet music. Big C major, big D minor on the bottom. Can't go wrong. That's a great tune. Okay. Oh, Green Path from Hollow Knight. Let's check out these vibes. That's a vibey tune, right? Those are some serious vibes. And it's kind of interesting, because I guess it's similar to Secret of the Forest in the sense that you're in like a forest, mysterious, secretive forest even, and it's musically similar in that there's that same kind of sus4 voicing in the harp part. I assume it's a harp. And it moves around a lot, you know, it's not just clunking out this chord, but those are the 3 notes that are being played, and having that voicing, this, stay consistent through the whole chord progression. You get all these chords with really colorful upper extensions, but I feel like this is a good way to kind of ease people into spicy chords, you know, ease people into this sound, because you start off with like, you know, B sus, E sus. Those aren't spicy, those are 3-note chords. But then when you go to C, that's a spicy chord. But you're already used to the kind of the triad, the sus chord voicing on top. It's totally consistent. It's not like hitting you with it all of a sudden. it eases you into it. So this is a cool like approach. If you're like, I like the idea of using upper structure chords, but they just sound bad, like I don't like to do it, this might be a good way to kind of like get used to it, is to have not spicy chords and then keep something the same and move other stuff so that they turn spicy. You get like that G major 13 on the bottom line, that's exactly the same voicing that we heard in Chrono Trigger on that G flat chord, right? Yeah, anyway, you get the point. Oh, and I should mention, in the bass, having those fifths, like it's a really common movement to go 1, 5, 1, but they go 1, 5, 9, just overshoot a little bit. That's a cool like structure to play around with. Anyway, moving on. Oh yeah, so you can see I wrote out just the same, it's the same stuff on top and just the bottom half moves and you get all these nice colors. It's so colorful and vibey. Wonderful. Okay. Who's ready for some crunch? Yes. Rob's ready. You like, who likes gross sounding music? No. So, okay, vibes, yes. If you just play a D minor 11 chord, that's gonna sound nice, that's great. But there's more to it than that, because if you want like a crunchy chord, or something that really, sounds devastating, or sounds surprised, or there's all these kind of feelings you want to access, and to do them, a lot of them require semitones and whole steps between notes in the chord. And you're not going to be able to get that with just a triad. And it's kind of, even with a 4-note chord, it can be tough to get that rub. Like if you have a major 7th chord, you can put the 7 and the root beside each other and do like and that's crunchy, but I never hear anyone do that, so it must not be super useful. What's really useful is putting seconds underneath the 3rd of a minor chord. Oh! Oh! You're killing me! Like, that's devastating. I want to cry just hearing that one chord. And so this is from Fire Emblem Awakening. There's a pivotal moment in the story where the queen, I guess, Exalt, I think is what they call her, but she sacrifices herself to save her country, and she was just a pure soul, never did anything to anybody, and it's heartbreaking. The main character is struggling, dealing with his grief, and this is the song it hits you with. Oh, heartbreaking. Like that first chord, yeah. I mean, they're high up, so it's not as like, I don't know, putting them high up. The higher a chord is, the more tension, the more tense it can be without making it gross, But you still feel that tension, and that in the middle of the second bar there, this. That's a great move. That's crunch. And it's not just like crunch for the sake of sounding gross or being edgy. It's like really, really important to the tone that the song's trying to convey. So later on in the same tune, when the melody comes in, kind of the whole point of it is like having the second of a minor chord in a minor chord is a really key part of the sound. You'll see the B flat minors down there have a second in them. And the melody starts on a big second or ninth, there's not a difference between what octave it's in or whatever. Don't believe the lies. No, some people, there's disagreement in the theory community, but I thought. size 9th over top. Let's hear how that sounds in the melody here. Oh, this is the top again. I can't change slides and have the music keep playing, that's why this happened. There's a middle part that I didn't put in slides, but after this phrase, it'll get to the melody. You'll notice every voicing uses either half steps or whole steps in the voicing. Like the G flat and the F minor chords both have this, which isn't, it doesn't cut you the way that like a semitone cluster does, but they still, still gives it that impact and that crunch. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is a totally different vibe. This is from Fez, and the whole tune is just kind of alternating two chords, a C sharp minor chord and a C sharp major chord, which is kind of interesting, right? But the thing is, the voicings are so dense, and there's like, so look, the first chord, it's a fifth, 2/5 on the bottom, we get this, that kind of figure like we saw in Green Path, and then a flat second, and then a whole step, and then a fourth on top. So it's very, if you have, the more different kinds of intervals you can have in one voicing, kind of the more complicated, that's not the right word, more intricate it sounds, I guess. Usually, yeah, crunchy is a good word for it. And then the major chord, there's no half steps in it, so it's kind of more airy. Yeah, it's a more airy, major light sound. The song sounds very curious and exploratory, and not like, my sister just died. So let's give it a listen. Pretty cool, right? Pretty vibey. Again, and these chords, it's a lot of notes on the page, right? It looks really complicated, but again, the C sharp minor 11 is just a B triad over top of a C sharp minor chord. And then the C sharp 6/9 is a C sharp major pentatonic scale, which is all the notes of the pentatonic scale cramped together, which is good for that kind of airy, not crunchy really, but still kind of crunchy. not My Sister Died, but still crunchy enough to be interesting. Where it's all, there's no semitone rubs, but there's a lot of whole step rubs. What is this one? So it's like... That's, you have to be careful about what sound you're using with these chords too. Like if you had that voicing in like the low strings, that's not gonna work. You have to, pianos are really good at taking crunchy chords. Lots of different, that's outside the scope of this too. But, be cognizant of if it sounds too gross, you maybe need to find a different sound to put the chord in. So this is a great, how many of you played Origami King? Woo! How many of you saw the cafe secret cutscene?
Yes.
Yes, dude. There's a little, you go to a cafe and you order coffee and you sit down, just have a little drink and relax for a minute, and it plays this lovely little loungy jazz piano solo thing that I just can't get enough of. It's awesome. Just like nice, you know? Sounds so good. And every chord uses extensions. There's, you know, so you have your major chords with so this first chord. Let's just pick out a couple to look at. First chord, E major 9. I put E major 7, but it's an E major 9 chord. You see the 9th underneath the 3rd down there. And then the melody has the major 7th up top. That's a minimum viable chord right there. That's just a nice sounding chord. And I love how we'll get to altered extensions in a minute. Don't worry, I'm gonna skip over that one for now. But the A major 7 chord is just the 7th and the root and the 3rd, but because you get a semitone in there, it's like, it's got that sting, it's got that crunch. Ooh, oh, so good. Yeah, all of these chords are great. A lot of like, maybe if you're like unsure of how to introduce extended chords into your own writing, I just thought of this now. I bet you could just take a chord that you know how to write and just add whatever note below one of the notes in the chord, you know? Like if you're just playing and you go like, I don't know. You have a nice E major thing going on. Just like move one note, add in one note below one of the notes in the chord. Even that. You know, there's, like we were talking before with this. There are some extensions that'll sound gross, but if you hit one of those, just take it out again. Like, it's fun to just experiment. Don't be intimidated. If any of you are intimidated, you just throw in notes and see what happens. Like E major 7 sharp 5 over F sharp. That's a weird chord, right? But it totally works. It sounds great. I would say that has stank, which means we've arrived at the next part of our program here. So stanky chords are, this is where I'm going to talk about altered extensions. Altered extensions, as I mentioned very briefly, are when you just move one of the upper extensions up or down in a semitone. So if you think about how we were talking about before, if you think of a 4-note chord and a 7-note scale that kind of goes with it, there's 3 notes left over to use as upper extensions. If you're thinking of adding in notes from outside a scale into a chord, you have 5 to choose from, right? C major scale is all white keys. All the black keys are chromatic notes. There's 5 of those. So if you add in an F sharp minor pentatonic scale cluster over your C chord, it'll sound the grossest possible. No, don't do that. But so it's like, that's not that many. 5, and you don't need to worry about all of them. Again, there's very specific combinations that you'll see actually used in music. Like you don't really see major 7 sharp 9 chords ever outside the Jacob Collier arrangement. You know, that's one that if you're overwhelmed by the options, you can leave that on the side. Don't worry about that. So there's 4 combinations that I think are really cool that I want you guys to think about. Oh no, there's more than 4. I think I put like 7 in here actually. We'll see. We'll see how many we get through. So one of the kind of first introductory altered chords that you're probably already familiar with is the sharp 9 chord, because that's the Purple Haze chord. So if you're a guitarist, then you know that one. That's like, if you don't know any extended cool chords, you still will know that chord. Ah. Ah. Oh no. There we go. Like, that's pretty gross. That's pretty stanky, but you know, it's been used a lot, so we're kind of culturally more used to it, I think, than some other equally stanky chords. But here, so it's a perfect setup as a 5-chord. Really layer that tension in, and then make the move back to the 1 chord feel that much better. So this is from Origami King again. This is the Red Streamer Battle, and kind of at the end of the form, you know, you get, you know, you're vamping on G for a bit, and then you get this F, bum 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 bum, ah, D7 sharp 9, oh, it's so stinky and crunchy, oh, I can't believe it. Boom, and then when you hit back home on the G, it's like, oh, we made it, amazing. Okay, let's check it out. Yeah. Oh, stank, man, stank. So that's a good one. Sharp 9 is the minor third. They're the same, they're enharmonically equivalent, which is another overly complicated theory term. That just means they're the same note. You would write them differently on the page if you're a pedant, but they're the same note. Oh, yeah, like I should have put E sharp technically. Rob's tutting right now. I can hear him tutting from the back. But I love, like, the other thing is, there's one very specific way that you'll use the 7 sharp 9 chord that I should mention before we move on, which is that you'll have the major third, and then the flat 7, and then the sharp 9 on top in a stack. With the root. You don't, like, again, I'm talking more general, like 95, 99% of examples, you're not going to hear like that doesn't really happen, but this particular stack does happen. So like if you want to just learn one stanky chord to have in your arsenal, you can just learn that one voicing, learn it in a few keys, and you're good to go. Okay, so here we have, oh, so this is one that's kind of hard to find examples of in video game music, but it's a really nice sounding chord. And this is like, when you're again, you're on a 5 chord, you want to resolve to the 1 chord. If you throw on the flat 13 and the flat 9, it sounds really, really nice. So this chord sounds like this by itself. Oh. It makes that resolution feel so nice. So that's a really common one in jazz music, the capital J, like the classic jazz. Not so common in video game music. I found this one of it, this kind of chord moving to a, did I screw, oh no, I was looking at the wrong bar. Yeah, in bar 2 there, you'll see it's arpeggiated in a piano, but it's I put sharp 5 again, it should be flat 13. But yeah, so a trick with this one too. All right, I'll play it first, and I'll tell you the trick. I'm sure you're all chomping at the bit to hear this one in real life. Let's go. So that one didn't resolve to the 1 chord, it did a little fake out up to the flat 6. That works too. One, so that you don't have to remember like F7, flat 9, flat 13, or is it sharp 5? No, I think you can just think, move up a half step, a minor 6 chord. So an F sharp minor 6, over an F bass. That's my shortcut when I'm trying to plunk these out on piano. Yeah, that's a nice one, that's a nice one. The time is flying by here, man. I want to give time for Q&A, so I'm going to try and blast through these really quickly. And then if you want me to spend more time on one in the Q&A, you can ask a Q about it, and I'll try and A it. Oh, man! So this is like my favorite altered chord ever. This is in the Donut Plains 3 from Mario Kart, originally in Super Mario Kart, but this I think I put in the Mario Kart 8 version. This is the only example of this particular chord I could find in video game music, but I love the chord so much I had to throw it in. It's a 13 flat 9, and that combo is just mwah, delicious. So in the key of E flat major, we have at the end of the top line here, it's a B flat 7 chord with the 13. Beautiful. And the flat 9. Oh! Woo. That's a nice chord. I don't know why that combo just gets me every time. That's a personal fave. And my shortcut for this one is, so in this particular example, it's a G major triad over a B flat 7th there. Gotta resolve it. Yeah, I won't get into that too much, but here we go. I just love this tune too. Yeah. But that. That's a really beautiful movement. There it is. There's a little G triad over top of a B flat 7 thing. Okay. Oh! Chibi Robo. This is a great tune. So this is Maiden's Thoughts from Chibi Robo. And this is an example of a Lydian dominant chord. You'll notice that these are all dominant chords so far, because that's where you most commonly see altered extensions. By their nature, they're very tense. So putting them on a chord that's supposed to sound tense, like a dominant chord, makes a lot of sense. But this type of chord is really good for just sitting on for a long time. In a lot of like classical music, you'll find this. It's kind of tough to find in video game music, but this tune has it. In jazz, vamps. There'll be a lot of Lydian dominant vamps, and yeah, we'll listen, try and imbue the vibes. I think I picked a bit. There's two versions of the tune, and one has a more explicitly Lydian dominant voicing, and this one's not as explicit. Oh no, there's the 7th in there. So yeah, you get. That's like fully extended Lydian dominant sound. Very cool. I'm gonna race through here so we have some time for Q's and A's. How many do I have left? Hold on here. 2, 3. Oh my goodness, there's so many left. All right. What do you guys think? So these are, okay, I'll give you a little spiel and then we'll do some Q&A. So outside of dominant chords, the common alterations that you'll see on a minor chord would be like a minor major 7 type thing, and that's pretty self-explanatory. You take the minor chord and you add the major 7 instead of the minor 7. That's the less offensive one. This is the less offensive one. This is the James Bond one. It also works really well for like creepy Dracula music, as you will see. If you want to look at it, you can see that nice major 7th there. Boom. I'm gonna skip over. Well, I don't know. How many of you have Q's? Do you mind if we go a little into Q&A time? Yeah? No one cares? Okay, awesome. Because this is a fun one. This is a sus4 flat 9 chord, which, I was talking before a lot about like practically useful chords. I don't know if this falls into that category, but check out this serious stink. It's like, it's not even just like a cool, whatever, crunchy chord. It's like you take that crunchy chord and then you move it. It's always different. Oh, please. A low semitone just to rub it in. But this is a good, like, if you're like, how do I even use a Phrygian scale? This is kind of a good way to use it. That's like the Phrygian chord, kind of. Anyway. Now this, so the only altered extension that you'll ever actually see on a major chord is the sharp 11th. Because similar to, you know, we talked about our minor chord with gross. The major chord equivalent is, I don't know about that one, but. So you hike that fourth up a semitone, and all of a sudden you can fit all 7 notes of the scale into the chord, which I know you're just itching to do. This one you can think of as a triad starting on the second, a major triad. So a G major chord and then an A major triad on top. My hands aren't big enough to play that wide of an interval. So this is a really beautiful tune from the original Animal Crossing called Meteor Shower. And you can see this G major 13 sharp 11. You got a big stack of fourths, and then underneath you get the little that is full of C sharps over that G in the bass. Let's give it a little whirl here. I love this tune. And it's got a similar thing happening to Green Path, where we talked about kind of taking a part of a voicing and maintaining it through changing chords. You'll see the little 16th note bit is playing like a D major, well, it's playing a lot of stuff, I guess, actually. Moving between these a cluster of like a D major scale, basically, and then putting that over all these different root notes, so you get all these different colors that all have this through line, the same through line. So my final example, and this one's just for fun, because this is scary. These chords are scary and they're spicy, and this is not for the faint of heart, but you know, you might be thinking like, okay, cool, I will get some tools in my tool belt. You know, if I want an extra stinky chord, I can use this thing. If I want to just like create a vibe and sit on it, I can use, you know, this kind of extended chord. And I think, highest level of understanding chord extensions is when you completely forget about the chords extensions and you just think purely in terms of voice leading between chords. So there's not really a lot of functional movement going on. You'll see we go from like a C7 to a D flat major, to a D flat minor, to a D flat major. You know, it's a lot, but it's because the voices all individually move in an interesting way, in a way that makes sense, and all just kind of play with what's a different color I can put over this root note. And so it's one of those situations, I think, where you kind of have to learn all this info and get used to it all. And then when you really have it down, you can kind of forget it all and just play whatever gross thing you want to play and figure out how to make it work. So this is again for Chibi Robo, which is just one of my favorite soundtracks. And this is the theme of Mort, the timid mummy, who's in love with a princess, but he's too shy to talk to her. So this is his, supposed to symbolize his tormented heart. Just, yeah. Because if you're thinking of chords as these like structures with up to 7 notes in them, the voice leading possibilities are kind of endless. Like moving from a C major triad to an F major triad, there's a few ways that you can voice lead that. But moving a C major 7 sharp 11 chord to an F, F whatever you want chord, there's an infinite number of ways that you can figure out how to voice lead that. That makes sense. So that's kind of the end goal. If you're really into this stuff, is to be able to do that. I'm still working on it, but maybe one day. Well, you guys have cues. Thank you all for coming. I hope that was fun to listen to and informative. We have just 5 minutes. If anyone has a question, please come up to the mic and ask the question. And if not, then I'll let you guys go home early, I guess. All right. I must have really explained everything perfectly. Oh, what's up?
Where did you get your education from, and how did you get so deep into analyzing music theory?
So I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, up in the middle of Canada, and I just went to the University of Manitoba there because it was close to my house. But it just so happened that there were some really great jazz musicians working there as profs. Great world-class musicians that either were sick of trying to do the New York gigging thing and wanted to move somewhere horrifyingly cold for some reason, or just guys who came up there who were insanely talented. So I was in school, I was kind of surrounded by really smart dudes who knew a lot about this stuff, and I had an interest in it, and everyone was very generous with their time and knowledge, so I think that's kind of where it started building up. And then I will say that I learned a ton just doing the channel and transcribing video game tunes, because so much of the theory is taught in a way that is hypothetical, like, oh, you could put an F sharp triad on top of an A triad on top of a C bass note or whatever. And you're like, okay, you could do that. But then when you transcribe 500 video game tunes, you go, okay, but you don't do that. And you see oh, but you do, the 9th in a minor triad. Like, oh, that's not something that the jazz framework really talks about, the jazz education thing. It's usually 7th chords and then stuff on top of that, but just so beautiful. And that was that kind of thing you just pick up from transcribing lots of stuff and spending time doing that. So yeah, mix of both, I guess. Any more questions?
So, how do you define what is exactly a spicy chord? Because there are some chords you said that I listen to. It's not that spicy. It's like a minor 9 or something like that. So
Right.
how do you kind of see what is spicy?
I think a lot of it has to do with for the purposes of the presentation, anything with a 9th or higher, I was kind of thinking that's like a spicy chord. That's not going to be in your guitar tab book if you're just learning Beatles tunes or whatever. But yeah, I think the spiciness has way more to do with the voicing than it does with what notes you include necessarily. And it's just the exotic notes lend themselves really well to making crunchy voicings because they don't, fit in a nice stack of thirds. But yeah, it's like what foods are spicy. It's like there is an objective thing that is spicy food, but then also everybody has different tolerances. So, it's a little bit subjective and objective at the same time. I feel like some of you want to ask a question but aren't. Am I reading the room right? I see a couple or maybe you're really itching to get out of here. You can get out of here if you want. Well, if there's any other questions? No? Okay. We ended 2 minutes early. We did it, everyone. Thank you so much for coming again.